Okay, excellent. Well, let's
Yes.
dive in. It's wonderful to meet you. I
You
appreciate
too.
you taking a minute out.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's begin our journey into your world of chiropractic and all of these things that go into holistic
Yeah.
approaches to being healthier. And I want to begin with something that we all survived and it affected all of us, which was this pandemic, and
Oh.
it's sent ripples through all of us to this day. How has that
Mhm.
affected you all the way up to this day? How has it changed
Yeah.
you?
Okay. So, gosh, at this point, pandemic it happens. I've been a chiropractor for like 18 years at
Yeah.
that point. And I mean, I love my job. I love my patients, but it's a really demanding job physically, but then also mentally, like doing clinical nutrition. People are coming to me with their problems all day. That's my job. I love it. The pandemic happens and we're forced shut down. And it was like, oh my gosh, like I had a minute to sit there and think, am I happy? Do I feel fulfilled? What's going on with my kids? Like, where are we at? And it was like this huge life revelation where I was like, I need to pivot. Like, I need to find passion in my life again because I kind of was just in burnout. I mean, just to be honest.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I've struggled with this vocal cord issues since my 20s, and it like really introverted me. I wouldn't even call my patients because I was like, oh, I can't use the phone.
Yeah.
And then, so anyways, pandemic happens. I'm like, I need to pivot. I want purpose and passion in my life. So I switched and I started doing this like second business. Well, what really happened for me was like as a person, I extroverted. And when you come from a place of like service and you're excited to teach, like I realized like, oh my gosh, like I'm teaching, I'm talking to people, I'm going and doing classes. I'm here on this podcast. Like it was like a huge pivotal point emotionally. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for a lot of people, I think there's a level of us that's fortunate that we went through something like that because it
Yeah.
was the fork in the road. It was that
Right.
moment of having pause, which we never get because everything moves
Yeah.
so fast, to kind of recalibrate what we wanted to do. And every time I interview and I hear all these answers, I think, did I go through that? Because I think there's still a part of me. I was an essential worker and I just kept working and working. I still feel like I moved so fast through it still. But I think there
Mhm.
was a lot of things like doing this that I feel like has been just a part of what makes sense to me. Reaching
Yeah.
out, having connections, highlighting the good things because in my backbone is as a journalist and it's so negative. If it bleeds, it
Yes.
leads. And it's
Yeah.
so divisive in this world of political amory and all these things that we're living through. We all, there's so, like you, there's so many people that are doing so many good things for human beings on this planet that's sending ripples into the next generation. And we have to celebrate that instead of saying, well, I wish the media would do it. Podcasting has given us that opportunity to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So totally. Like, so first of all, back to like you doing journalism, like it's the same thing. Like you're in the trenches, right? Like you're hearing all the like negative, and you have to do something. We, all of us, have to do something that lights us up, but also puts that joy back into life. Like,
Yeah.
I just think it's awesome what you're doing and how you're doing that, and just bringing positivity and people together. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you. You know, the one thing I learned over the pandemic is I had all of us had decisions to make, and I decided I'm going to do more interviews, and I was just doing jazz at the time.
Oh,
So
I love it.
I have teenagers. I have a stepdaughter who's at the time was, I believe, 14, 15, going on 30. And
Yes.
my son's on the spectrum. So I would get the interviews and I would put them on speaker and we would drive around so we didn't get cagey and we could see the world. And the voices and the attitudes of jazz musicians were so positive, so strong, so
Yes.
real. And I have a lot to thank for them because they were really, I mean,
Wow.
just they were wonderful, you know. So
So cool because they're creative,
yeah.
right? That creative, like life force is just coming through. I think that's huge.
Yeah. And to this day, Jilly, my stepdaughter, still talks about one person in particular. There was a pianist in New York named Theo Hill, and
Yeah.
he literally, when the pandemic happened, packed up and went to Costa Rica. And in the background, we could hear the surf, we could hear the macaws cawing, and he turned into a surfer dude, like the
Oh my God.
opposite. And she still remembers that interview and is just like, I wonder what that dude's doing. So it's
He's
cool.
living his best life. Like
Exactly.
he is living his truest, best life. And I
Yeah.
mean, some of us, like you're saying, like with kids, I've got kids, like I guess we could pack up and like go somewhere awesome, but like we just have to make the space we've got and the time we have awesome, right?
Yeah, you have to wait until you either have a parade for the Lions or the Tigers, right?
Yes, yes. Hmm. We're
That's
very big.
I want to see Detroit explode because I know when we got our first World Series in like 30 years and 15,
Yeah.
there was so many people it felt like New York City downtown, just jammed with
Isn't it
people.
cool?
Yeah.
It is like this. So, like, as we slightly discuss, like, I'm not really a sports person. I'm more like, go team,
Yeah,
yay, sports. But my husband and my two boys, and then just like our whole extended family, like having the Lions here in Detroit, like, this is exciting. And I think in a world that's so divisive and there's just so much negative stuff. Like, cherish the fun
yeah.
stuff,
Uh-huh.
make stuff fun,
Yep.
make it, create it. If the lines light you up or you love sports, run with it.
That's it.
Have parties, right? Like,
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
have to. We
We
have
totally
to.
do. We totally do.
Mhm.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis now and kind of this new incarnation of your career. I'm going to put
Yeah.
you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the kids in the back of the room is curious, and he says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer him?
Yeah, so every single day I get to help people. I help them. I help them find their optimal health. So, like, whether it's a 70-year-old lady who really is just struggling with joint pain, but wants to be playing with her grandkids.
Yeah,
Okay, I got you. Or like talking about kids on the spectrum, um, helping those kids find peace and maybe like some calm and focus at school or moms with babies who don't sleep. Let me help you get that baby sleeping so
yeah.
that you can sleep. So it's just meeting people where where they're at. What do they need to get back in the game?
It's interesting what you're doing is that you're creating these subcultures of being conscientious about our biology, and we
Yeah,
always overstep that. We're in a fast food nation. We're constantly moving. We don't take time to do that. And what I found interesting about going to a place like Europe is that they're much more conscientious. Their
yeah,
foods, they cook more, they walk more. There's not as much health issues that happen. It's like if we could just imbue that culture with what you're doing, it would just make everything, it would become just a part of our world, our lifestyle.
yeah. Okay, so here's the thing, Joe. In Europe, the food is fresh, like it isn't processed. Like here, even like our the wheat is highly processed. They added extra gluten, so now everybody has got digestive issues and can't break down gluten. But if you go to Europe, you're fine.
Yeah, you're
It's
totally fine.
huge. And it's true. I think if people really went back to the basics of, listen, food is fuel.
Yeah,
Like we all have food for fun, food for comfort, food for this, but really like go back to what really fuels your body. And listen, I was just telling a patient this week, I'm like, listen to your body. How do you feel after you eat ice cream?
yeah,
Maybe you feel awesome for like 10 minutes, but then you crash. Like people don't correlate how they feel with what they're eating.
yeah,
And I think that's the biggest missing
yeah.
link.
It certainly is. I always feel like that after McDonald's. It's like it's coming. Here it comes. Like I'm just
Here
gonna
it
feel
comes. Well,
totally
yeah,
crashed.
and not just digestive. Like they've correlated. Like there's some awesome books. One is called Wheat Belly, and another one's called
Yeah,
Grain Brain. So both these books talk about like even like psychological symptoms, depression, anxiety,
yeah,
all this stuff. So much of it is diet.
yeah,
And that's like a huge thing with like teens. So in my practice, I still practice chiropractic like a few days a week, and we do clinical nutrition. And the biggest thing I see with kids, teens, is anxiety, depression. They feel like they can't function, and the quick answer is like medication.
yeah,
And my thing is, well, before you go to that, why don't we look at the Starbucks triple frappa, whatever it is they're drinking, and really pulling it apart.
yeah.
Like, what are
Absolutely.
we
You're
eating?
yeah. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Oh my gosh. So I wanted to be a dentist.
Okay.
So I always actually loved root canals, like an endodontist. And then in college, I just started like working with this dentist. And first of all, their posture is, I see so many dentists, hygienists, because their posture is so horrible. And people don't like pain. So even though I found it very exciting and wonderful, they didn't like the pain. So now I still do a lot of like when I'm adjusting, I do a lot of muscle work. And somebody recently said to me, wait, here you are. You always want to be a dentist. Here you are still inflicting pain. And I was like, but it's love.
Yeah.
I'm doing this out of love. So yeah, so I wound up in chiropractic, which is kind of weird. I I suffered from digestive issues since birth. My parents said I had colic for like 3 years. Like all I did was cry. And then all the way through college and high school, they were like, oh, you have irritable bowel. You need to like calm down, manage your stress. So I started shadowing different like professions. And I shadowed this lady, a chiropractor, and she did something called muscle testing. So she muscle tests me, and I'm thinking, what is this weird voodoo? Like, what is she doing? And she's like, Jen, you need to stop eating dairy. It's really affecting you, and pull out corn. And I was like, okay, that's random. All right.
Yeah.
3 days later, my gut was like fixed. I'm like, oh, I
Wow.
have to do this for a living.
Wow.
This is amazing.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is amazing.
How
So
about that?
that is very cool. I love stories like that. So let me
Yeah.
ask you this. Who has consistently in your professional life and otherwise been kind of a hero or an inspiration for the work that you do?
Oh my gosh. So I have a few. So first, my mentor, since that moment, I have stayed with that woman, and she has become one of my best friends. And her name is Dr. Stacy Francis. And she's written a book, and she's just a fabulous inspiration. And then I love so there's this guy, his name's Dr. Goodheart, and he passed away years back, but he invented like this technique with the muscle testing, and it helps us figure out what the body needs, like from an energetic standpoint.
Yeah,
So it sounds kind of woo-hoo, but like that's what I've based my career off of, and I see miracles every day. It's
absolutely.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What has been the motivation for you to do this work? That's kind of a
Yeah.
part of it, but also you have to give a lot of yourself. You've talked about
Yeah.
how mentally and physically exacting this can be, but you're a human. You have to develop and
Yeah.
you have to hold back for you. How do you balance and parlay that every day?
Okay, so first, my passion in life is helping people. I just want to make people feel better every single day from whatever avenue I can do it. But you're right. So as a mom, as a wife, as a clinician, also as a woman, like my job is very physical. So like for years, I felt like I had to compete with the dudes, right? Like I only weigh, well, now I'm a little heavier, but let's say like 140. And I work with three men who are 6 feet to 6 feet 8, and I feel like I gotta keep up with them. I don't. I
Yeah,
don't. I have to practice different, and it took me 18 years to learn boundaries, and
yeah,
I'm still not awesome at it. It's like I'm type A. I feel like I can do everything for everybody all the time,
yeah,
and it burnt out.
yeah,
So it's like, okay, I have to I have to pivot,
yeah,
right? So the first thing is what brings me joy, where's my passion, but also personal boundaries. Like
yeah,
I need to have time to just be with my family or working out.
yeah.
That's huge, right?
So let's say you have a dream tonight and you go back to that version of you before you decided that you wanted to get into the chiropractic arts, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've
Yeah.
accumulated. What advice would
Oh,
you impart on that young version of you?
oh my gosh, that's huge. I think the biggest thing is give yourself grace.
Yeah,
Give yourself grace to not always know the answer, to stop and smell the roses. Like I did my undergrad in 3 years, and then I did chiropractic, which is a 5-year program,
yeah.
in 3.5. So it's like
Wow.
I didn't know anything but push, and I put all my self-worth on my accomplishments.
Yeah,
And I think that's a huge thing too. So if I could go back, I'd tell myself, give yourself grace. Stop. Stop. Smell the roses a little bit. Have some fun.
yeah,
And then also diet. So, like I told you, like my gut was a disaster. I was eating like a pound of sour balls a day. Like, oh, that's my girlfriend's. Like, that's how we studied.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm like,
for sure.
wake up,
Uh-huh.
go back to whole food.
Yeah, absolutely. So of all of these things that you've accomplished and become in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Hmm. Think it's the proudest. Gosh, the proudest thing is just helping people reconnect to themselves through proper nutrition, through supplementation, through oils. For me, seeing somebody like go from okay, just this week, I have this little girl. She's maybe 15. She started having seizures, I think it was a year ago. They've done studies, they're like, it's not neurological. So I'm like, girl, this is stress, this is diet. And so just this last week, I saw her, and I've only seen her a couple of times. It's like the light bulb is on. You know, when you can just see somebody is there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, we're doing it like she's coming back.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, everyone in your world sees you in a certain light, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What is your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think this is going to sound so cheesy, but like, I think I'm love. Like, I really tried to represent from love, with love. I just want to like share the love.
Yeah, I get it. I don't believe you would be doing this if you didn't believe in that.
Yeah,
It totally is the embodiment of what you're doing.
yeah,
So if anyone out there is interested, they want to reach out, they have questions,
yeah.
they want to delve into your world more, how do they do that?
Okay. So I sent you a link. I think it was just this morning. So
Yes.
that link is just a health survey.
Yeah.
So if somebody fills it out, it instantly goes back to me. So like I'm happy to help people with like whatever. So they can fill that out and then they can reach me. But also on Instagram, I'm at Food to the Rescue, and it's food dot to dot the dot rescue.
Okay.
So I try to be active there too.
Okay. And I will put all the links in the show notes. Dr. Shell, this has been so nice. Thank you
Oh
for
my
your
gosh.
story. Thank you for your time. And good luck to the Lions.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Joe. This ton of fun. Keep spreading the positivity. And yeah, go Lions.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do the same. Thank you. I appreciate it.